The harsh reality of enterprise AI is officially here. Organizations are pouring unprecedented capital into generative AI infrastructure, and they're obviously expecting immediate financial transformation, right? Well, the data tells a completely different story. McKinsey's latest global survey reveals a massive, almost systematic failure to translate AI integration into actual, hard bottom-line reality. The technology itself is rapidly advancing, for sure, but the organizational architecture required to actually monetize it, it's lagging far, far behind.
The core contradiction here is just staggering. Over 80%. Let that sink in. Despite aggressive, widespread integration across corporate functions, over 80% of organizations are seeing absolutely zero tangible enterprise-level EBIT impact from their generative AI deployments. The financial needle is literally static. The vast majority of companies out there are buying the tech, but they are entirely failing to capture its value.
78% of organizations are now using AI in at least one business function. I mean, that is massive, normalized enterprise adoption. Yet, less than 20% are achieving any tangible enterprise-level EBIT impact. So we've got this huge adoption rate violently colliding with a severe lack of material financial returns. The gap between purchasing AI and actually profiting from AI completely depends on how the enterprise is rewired.
Section 1. Analytical postmortem of value. Okay, to understand why this happens, we have to isolate the variables. The data clearly shows that organizations exceeding $500 million in revenue are changing faster, and they're capturing way more value. They aren't just using AI, they're restructuring completely around it. McKinsey actually tested 25 organizational attributes against reported EBIT impact, which yielded an R-squared of 0.20, by the way. But two attributes completely dominate that correlation. The first, fundamental workflow redesign, and the second is direct CEO oversight of AI governance. Value doesn't come from the software itself. It comes from fundamentally rewiring how the company runs and enforcing that change right from the absolute top of the executive chain.
But the reality of current leadership exposes a pretty critical gap. Only 28% of respondents report that their CEO is directly responsible for overseeing AI governance. When AI governance just gets delegated down the chain, it fragments. Successful transformations require completely siloed parts of the enterprise to act in one orchestrated effort, and the data proves that basically only happens when the CEO is directly involved.
So, how do successful firms strategically deconstruct their architectural restructuring? Well, for risk, compliance, and data governance, they use a fully centralized model, often creating a center of excellence. But for tech talent and the actual adoption of AI solutions, they deploy a hybrid or partially centralized model. They strictly control the risk at the center, but they push the talent and deployment capabilities all the way out to the edges where the actual business functions operate. Just 21% of organizations have fundamentally redesigned their workflows as a result of their Gen AI deployment. Listen, you literally cannot drop a generative AI model into a legacy workflow and expect an exponential return. No way. The workflow itself has to be dismantled and rebuilt around the AI's capabilities. If you're part of that 79% still running legacy processes with new AI tools, you are just generating friction, not revenue.
Alex Singla, senior partner at Quantum Black, anchors this perfectly. He says, it pays to think in terms of wholesale transformative change rather than proceeding incrementally. Incremental, piecemeal, use case by use case approaches just fail to move the bottom line. Foundational, enterprise-level infrastructure changes are absolutely mandatory. Starting with an overarching transformative vision completely alters your data capture, your access control, and your reusable code, which then allows all subsequent functionalities to be deployed so much faster and cheaper. Wholesale change is really the only path to a lasting competitive advantage.
Section 2. Hidden friction and risks.
Scaling this technology introduces some immediate, severe organizational stress. We need to analyze the operational friction, the human bottlenecks, and the architectural debts that heavily complicate deployment. 47% of organizations have now experienced negative consequences from their Gen AI use, and in response, we are seeing a sharp, aggressive increase in active risk mitigation from early 2024 to late 2024. Companies are essentially being forced to build defensive perimeters specifically around cybersecurity threats, chronic inaccuracy or hallucinations, and severe intellectual property infringement risks. The cost of managing AI is rising just as fast as its adoption. And all of that leads directly to a massive human-in-the-loop bottleneck. 27% of organizations are forced to manually review absolutely all Gen AI output before it's used. Think about the sheer drag on efficiency there. Buying an AI to work at lightning speed, only to require a human checkpoint on every single output.
Whether it's a customer-facing chatbot response or AI-generated code, more than a quarter of companies are totally neutralizing the speed and scale of this technology promises. And in legal and professional services, that number is even higher.
The deployment of AI is also violently shifting structural workforce dynamics. Expectations for headcounts are diverging rapidly based on the function. In service operations, like customer care, and in supply chain and inventory management, headcounts are actively decreasing as AI automates those legacy tasks. But simultaneously, headcount demands in IT, software engineering, and product development are expanding heavily. AI isn't simply a job killer, it is a rapid reallocation of human capital.
But here's the thing. That reallocation is stalling out because of intense hiring constraints. Organizations are facing critical shortages across the board. 50% of all organizations report needing significantly more AI data scientists in the coming year. Plus, we're seeing entirely new risk-related roles emerge out of pure necessity. 13% of organizations have now hired AI compliance specialists, and 6% have brought on AI ethics specialists. You simply can't scale enterprise AI without the specialized human architecture to sustain it. And right now, that talent is massively bottlenecked.
Section 3. Tactical plan for scaling.
So how do we actually resolve these bottlenecks and convert experimentation into hard financial value? Let's set the baseline first. Right now, a mere 1% of company executives describe their generative AI rollouts as truly mature. 1%. The entire corporate landscape is basically operating in an immature experimental phase. The organizations that systematically execute the definitive scaling practices we're about to cover, they are the ones who will capture the market. Here is the exact sequence of the highest impact management practices identified in the data. Step 1 is the single strongest driver of bottom-line impact, tracking well-defined KPIs for Gen AI solutions to guarantee ROI. Yet less than 1 in 5 organizations are currently doing this. Step 2 requires establishing phased rollouts across teams via a clearly defined roadmap. And Step 3, that demands active senior leader engagement, including the direct role modeling of AI use. These are the absolutely mandatory gates for scale. The remaining crucial elements of the 12 scaling best practices demand deep structural commitment. You've got to establish dedicated transformation teams. You need role-based capability training, so every single employee level knows exactly how to utilize these tools. You have to build feedback mechanisms to improve model performance over time and aggressively embed these solutions directly into frontline business processes. And to put that into perspective, companies with over $500 million in revenue are executing these specific practices at more than twice the rate of smaller firms.
We also really need to address this structural disparity in the management chain. C-level executives are actually leading personal generative AI use at 53% compared to only 44% of mid-level managers. So leadership is clearly adopting the technology on a personal level, but they are systematically failing to push mature operational frameworks down the chain. Let's be clear, personal adoption at the top is not the same as enterprise scaling.
Bryce Hall, associate partner at McKinsey, answers the AI ROI lie directly. The organizations that actually capture financial value realize that management practices, workflow rewiring, and aggressive change management are vastly more critical than the underlying technological novelty. The tech is just the baseline. The real competitive advantage lies entirely in the execution of your scaling strategy.
So we are left with a critical dilemma based on this data. Over 80% of you are seeing zero EBIT impact right now. Are you going to continue wasting resources on disjointed, incremental use cases? Or are you prepared to systematically rewire your enterprise, overhaul your workflows, and mandate CEO governance for wholesale transformation? The data is crystal clear on which path generates value. The choice of implementation is entirely yours.